Happy Thursday, everybody. It's Jim, it's Amadeus, and well, we're winding down, Amadeus, with regard to both the regular season in the NHL and the beginnings. We've already began the playoffs in the NBA, and so it goes. Tonight we have a game, and you were mentioning it in the pre-show that actually does have meaning, and those are the Kings playing their game and the Golden Knights playing theirs for seeding, hopefully to land that number three spot.
Yeah, they're both already clinched, but pretty much the Kings are 1 point behind the Golden Knights. So it's just a matter of who's going to get that third spot in the division. And I believe they would face the Oilers, and then who's going to get that wild card spot. So if the Kings win and the Golden Knights lose, then the Kings will get that third spot. If the Golden Knights win, or I think even if they just get a point, they should be it good in that third place spot. So we'll see what happens. But other than that, yeah, the games are pretty meaningless tonight in the NHL.
So there you go. We both have many friends in the Las Vegas area, and I'm really pleased to see how well the Golden Knights have been, embraced by the community from day one.
Oh yeah, they definitely get behind their team. So no one's questioning the Vegas fan base for sure. Now, I don't know if they're going to support the A's in the same way, but definitely, they've definitely gotten behind this hockey team.
Well, we've called it. It's going to be the Sacramento A's. I I don't think they're leaving Northern California, but
Yeah.
it's a whole different thing. It's a whole different vibe with the hockey. They did a really good job of selling the concept before they actually brought the team, and and it doesn't hurt to make it to the Stanley Cup playoffs. I'm sorry, Stanley Cup Finals in your first season.
Yeah, definitely. They've been great since they came into the league.
Hmm.
Pretty much in the playoffs every year. Obviously, they're the defending champions, so
Hmm.
definitely it's worked out there for sure. Not like
Yeah.
Arizona, but it's definitely worked out in Vegas, and we'll see if the Coyotes will work out in Salt Lake. I'm
Well, I'll
sure
tell you what.
they'll have
I
more
know that
success.
the Salt Lake, the entire state of Utah is a great sports, area, and I really do think that they will embrace the hockey team. They've embraced the basketball team. Of course, the Jazz have been there for many, many years. They've also embraced quite um, happily the soccer team out there. So they like sports. They like the college sports. They like the pro sports. So I do. I think that the move to Salt Lake for the Coyotes is really a very good move.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it's one of those things where they don't have many sports teams, so they tend to get behind the ones they
Uh huh.
have. Like you mentioned, they really just have the NBA team, and they're more of a college,
Hmm.
town. And now they have the MLS team. They've really gotten behind that. So
Hmm.
yeah, if you bring a hockey team in there, I'm sure it'll do well. Same with an MLB team. So it's going to be
Hmm.
very interesting to see. They could end up getting two teams in two different sports in the next 5 years.
You never know. I wouldn't mark it off the calendar. And the thing too is that the people up there are really um, they do they do like to support their teams, and they buy the merch, and they're very heavily involved. And frankly, there's a lot of area around there. People driving even over from neighboring states, to watch the Jazz play, and it's real. You find that wherever people, in a market the size of Salt Lake, if you have an NBA team and an NHL team, it really they feed off of each other, and so I think that's going to be a good help. Part of the problem with the Coyotes, and there were many problems with the Coyotes, but part of the problem with the Coyotes is they never wanted to share an arena with the Phoenix Suns. And I always thought that was the stupidest thing that I could think of. And trust me, you look at what the Panthers and the Heat have done, and the Panthers have suffered drastically from not from not being in the same building with the Heat. So you may have your own building, but it's not necessarily. You may be making more money off the concerts that you're doing than actually having playing the games.
Yeah, definitely. Never understood that one, but yeah, most a lot half the teams in the league share the stadium with the hockey
Hmm.
team as well, and it definitely helps for marketing too. So
Yeah, I mean, there are exceptions. We know that both Jersey and the Islanders have their own buildings, but they're in a metropolitan area of 20 some million people, so you can get away with it in that regard. But it's going to be tough. It'll be interesting, but it's going to be tough as we
yeah,
see.
well, even then, the Rangers and the Knicks share an arena, so
Yeah. Hmm.
even in a city like that, they still found it was a better decision, and it really is because obviously it's
Hmm.
Madison Square Garden, but
Yeah. Well, we got the early games out for the playoffs, and we spoke of the Islanders, and the Islanders will be at Carolina on Saturday. That's a 5 p.m. puck drop on TBS True TV. It'll stream on Max. Then the nightcap of the doubleheader is Toronto in Boston. Again, this one's an 8 p.m. puck drop, TBS True TV and Max. So that's your Saturday games. Your Sunday games, they don't leave the state of Florida. Tampa Bay is in in the Miami area to face Florida. That's a 12:30 puck drop on ESPN, and then uh, the afternoon affair, the late mid afternoon affair on ESPN at 3 o'clock drop is at the world's most famous arena, as they like to call it, Madison Square Garden, as the Rangers host the Capitals in what seemingly happens every year. The Rangers and the Capitals seem to always play each other either in the first or the second round of the playoffs. And, it happens again this time. They will be on hand in that. In the world's most famous arena, at least from their standpoint, Rangers and Capitals. 3 o'clock puck drop on that one. And then from that point on, we don't know what's going to happen. We'll find out probably tomorrow where the rest of the playoffs go from that standpoint.
yeah, and it's fun. It's funny you say that it feels like we get that every year, and I think that's part of the reason that so many people are complaining about the divisional system in the NHL
Hmm.
right now. And I know there was this big thing a week ago about how they were considering, should we go back to the top 8 in the East and top 8 in the West to make the playoffs? Because with
Hmm.
the format you have now, you're getting in a situation. Look at the strength of some of the divisions, right? The Carolina
Hmm.
Hurricanes have 111 points and the Rangers have 114. Those are the two best teams in the Eastern Conference.
Right.
But instead, the Hurricanes are getting, essentially what is a tougher matchup with the third seed. It may have not worked out that way, right?
Hmm.
But let's say that was a stronger team in that spot. Like look at the Western Conference, and I think a big part is the race we had in the Western Conference. Or
Hmm.
even in the Eastern Conference, right? So with getting into the wild card, the Red Wings, their only hope was getting into the wild card spot,
Hmm.
whereas some of these other teams like the Penguins, the Islanders, the Capitals in that last week, they were all fighting for
Hmm.
wild card and the third spot in the division. So it's definitely you'll get. It may not have happened this year, but you'll get to scenarios where you get teams that get left out with maybe more points because they're in
Hmm.
a stronger division and things like that. And again, you get these matchups where every year we got to see. We could talk about how the Leafs never get out of the first round of the playoffs. They have to play the Bruins again this season,
Right.
right? And it's like we see the Leafs play the Lightning or the Bruins every year in the first round,
Hmm.
and it gets boring after a while, right? You don't get, if you go back to the 1v8 system, you get those scenarios where you would get different matchups because it's not based on your division. But the way the divisional format works in the NHL, you're basically handicapping these teams no matter what, unless you get the wild card, unless you finish first in your division, really. But you have to take someone out in your division because a lot of time the wild card team you even play is from the same division. So I just think it's ridiculous. But the NHL doesn't have a great commissioner, so it doesn't shock me that things like these happen.
It's amazing. I went through and took a quick look, and the Capitals I mentioned yesterday have made the playoffs 16 out of the last 18 years. 14 out of those 14 out of the 16 years they played the Rangers in one, either in the first or the second, in the first or the second series in the playoffs. So, it's like when they make the playoffs, when the Rangers make the playoffs or the Capitals make the playoffs, they know that they're going to end up playing each other.
Yeah, and a big reason is because they're in the same division, and just the way the NHL designed, they're handicapped by the system, the format.
Right, and the fans, it's like, okay, well, we know each other. By this time, it's the fans in the buildings know each other.
Yeah, and then you could even get these situations, right? Like we talked about the Bruins, for example. They were in contention to get the President's Trophy, and they really dropped the ball this last week. And we kind of talked about how, maybe they didn't want to win the President's Trophy because they won it last year and they got cursed. Well, guess what? Maybe even fueling that was knowing, hey, if we start throwing some games in this last week, not only will we make sure we don't get the President's Trophy, let the Panthers get that this year or someone else, obviously it was the Rangers, but they also look at it like, hey, the Leafs are locked into third place. They can't move up or down. If we throw some games and end up in second, we know we own their ass, so let's take the Leafs in the first round, right? So you get these scenarios where maybe the team wanted the more favorable matchup because they know they own a division rival, and that's why this is why I just think the NHL is a stupid league in general.
Well, and I don't think that Tampa Bay and the Panthers are excited about playing each other in the first round.
Yeah. And, again, you get the Florida rivalry, like, okay, but they see each other enough during the season. Like, the last thing they want to see each other again in the first round of the playoffs. And then that's the thing. You'll never get those more interesting matchups, right? Like, we're never going to see the with the 1v8 system, you would maybe get, the Hurricanes and the Bruins in the first round or something like that. You'll never get that in the first round with this system.
No, it's a mess. Well, we know who's playing on Friday night in the NBA, and that's Chicago, and they're taking on Miami. That game is on ESPN. It is a 7:00 tip off, and then at 9:30, it's Sacramento and New Orleans. That is what's coming up on your Friday card in the NBA. Now, the Eastern Conference will start on Sunday. That's the Boston. Will play their first game Sunday. That's going to be at 1:00 on ABC. Meanwhile, New York and Philadelphia get their series started on Saturday. That's a 2-7 matchup. The Knicks will be hosting the 76ers, and that's a 6:00 start on ESPN for that game. Meanwhile, on Sunday, Milwaukee and Indiana face off. That's a 7 p.m. tip on TNT. Cleveland and Orlando is a Saturday tip. That's a 1:00 on ESPN. And then over on the Western Conference, Oklahoma City, they're in the same boat. They're going to have to wait and find out who they're going to play. That will happen at 9:30 on Sunday on TNT and streaming on Max. Denver and the Lakers, that's the 2-7 matchup, is Saturday. That's 8:30 on ABC, so that'll be a game in prime time on ABC. Minnesota, that's a 3-6 against Phoenix. That game will be played on Saturday at 3:30 on ESPN. The Clips in Dallas, that's 4-5. That's the Mavs and the Clips. That's a Sunday game, 3:30 afternoon game on ABC. So there you go. That's where your chance to find all of those games and where they're going to be. Coming up this weekend, there's a lot of NBA action, and there's enough NHL action to keep you going.
Yeah, one matchup that stands out to me there is the 76ers Knicks one. If I told
Uh
you
huh.
the 76ers and the Knicks were playing in the first round of the playoffs, what would you think the seeding is on that game?
It wouldn't be 2-7, I can tell you that.
Yeah,
It would
maybe
be
two for the Sixers.
right. It would, yeah. It might be 2-7. Other way around. You're right. It might be. I might even in other years it might be Philadelphia 1-8 in that situation.
Yeah, and it's just interesting to me because obviously the great on the Knicks, they really earned it. They pushed at the end there to get that second seed, so they definitely deserve the second seed, especially the way they turned the season around at the trade deadline. They
Hmm.
really they really brought in a haul and improved their team, but it's funny to me just because the 76ers, so it's no shade on the Knicks. They deserve the second seed, but the
Yeah.
76ers could be a second seed themselves because,
Yeah.
obviously we know the story with them. They were in the third seed when Embiid got injured and they dropped all the way into the play-in tournament.
Yeah.
But if he had stayed healthy, I wonder who the real second seed. This might not even be a matchup in the first round of the playoffs at all. So I just very interesting matchup, I think.
It's funny because we talked about the Rangers coming out of this with the number one seed, and now the Knicks, same building, Madison Square Garden. They're going to be sharing, but they're going to be sharing in as favorites, which is not normal for the New York teams in either hockey or basketball.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's going to be interesting for them. Both are going to get home advantage, and if they go deep into the playoffs, they're both going to get home advantage pretty deep, unless the Knicks run into the Celtics really.
The joke was that they hoped the Yankees could hold on to first place through the entire weekend, just so they would have three teams in first place as they head into the weekend. So, well, we'll see about that. But no, New York, Philadelphia, that's a good matchup. Uh, Milwaukee, Indiana should be a good 3-6 matchup.
Yeah, definitely. The Bucks they slipped down late there. Obviously, they were the number two seed for most of the season, and we'll have to check on Giannis because I know he missed the last few games, but I'm sure he'll be ready to go for this series. It's an interesting one because the Pacers, um, the Pacers are a very high scoring team. Obviously, they made some moves, picked up Siakam at the trade deadline, and they really improved their team as well. But they were one of those teams coming into the season where they were averaging 150 points scored per game to start the year. Every game was going over. I think their first like 13 straight went over or something like that. So they played a fast pace, and it'll be interesting to see how this Doc Rivers style defense that
Hmm.
the team seems to take on in some games and others just completely like ignores the defensive game plan. So we'll have to see which Milwaukee shows up. Obviously, it's a division rivalry here, them being in the same division, so they play each other often.
Yeah, I'm sure that Indiana, the Pacers might be talking to the Fever, asking if Caitlin Clark could make the postseason roster for the Pacers to give them some more outside shooting. Uh, that 4-5 matchup between Cleveland and Orlando is flying way under the radar. I mean that's you hardly even hear that ever being mentioned.
Yeah, Orlando, that was a team we talked about early in the year
Yeah.
before the Christmas break. I talked about how I
Mhm.
thought the Orlando Magic are the Oklahoma City of last year. We saw the
Yeah.
Thunder kind of squeak into the play-in tournament
Hmm.
last year. They didn't really do well. But that was after a season where they finished under 500 and barely won any games. So
Mm-hmm.
they were one of the worst teams in the year before. So we saw the improvement with the Thunder. I pegged the Magic to be this team. And, same scenario here. I didn't think they were going to get as high as they did, a fifth seed. They were even, I think, in contention for like the third seed going into that last game of the season. So definitely good on the Magic. They've shocked me, but they haven't been a very good road team this year. And I expect Cleveland to get through. Obviously, Cleveland hasn't played well lately, but they've also been missing Donovan Mitchell for a decent amount of games. So he just started to come back in that last week. So
Mm-hmm.
I expect Cleveland to get by, but I totally agree. It'll be a very interesting matchup here. The Magic are a young team, and like I said, I think they're the Thunder of last year. So who knows? Maybe the Magic are the number one seed next year.
You never know. But again, Cleveland and Orlando, it's a battle of two young teams, and sometimes you never know what goes with that. I mean, they could get hot and suddenly come streaking out of that 4 or 5 position and cause a lot of people some serious grief. Real quick, we can, if you got a second, we'll go just at least over Saturday's schedule in the MLS. We got Atlanta, Cincinnati, Columbus, Portland, Miami, Nashville. Seems like they play every other week. Montreal and Orlando, New York City and DC, Toronto and New England, Cleveland and Salt Lake, Houston and Austin, Kansas City and St. Louis, Colorado, Dallas, LAFC and the Red Bull. And Saturday's last game is a rivalry game, Seattle in Vancouver. So there you go. That's any of those games pique your fancy from a standpoint of should be decent games?
Oh yeah, definitely. All of those. By the way, I'm disappointed. All the games start at 7:30.
Yeah.
Tisk 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 MLS, but yeah, definitely. We got some good games for sure. Atlanta and Cincinnati is going to be a good one. Cincinnati, obviously, the best team in the MLS last year in the regular season, and this Atlanta team, they're coming off a win against Philadelphia at home, who's been pretty good this year. So Atlanta, they're no pushover at home, that's for sure.
Mhm.
Columbus and Portland is an interesting one to me. Obviously, Columbus, the defending MLS Cup champions, but Portland's been a bit of a nasty team to start the season. They can score. Miami and Nashville, they just faced each other in the CONCACAF Champions Cup a few weeks ago, I believe, and Miami kicked Nashville out before getting kicked out themselves to Monterey. So that'll be an interesting one. Nashville is probably going to come with a little extra in that match. So definitely some good matchups here to tip off your night here with the MLS on the weekend. Obviously, just still disappointed that they're all those are at 7 because that's
Yeah.
perfect games to be staggering in the afternoon.
Then you got New York City and DC United playing at Citi Field, which is the home of the Mets. I'm not sure the sightlines would be very attractive in that ballpark, but we'll have to see. I mean, baseball stadiums are not normally a good place to watch soccer,
Yeah.
but we shall see. And Chicago and Salt Lake. Where was the one I was looking for? Oh, there it is. Seattle, Vancouver. They always play each other well. I mean, it doesn't matter whether they're good or bad, either team. They always seem to that's a rivalry goes all the way back to the NASL. So uh, it's always fun for Seattle and Vancouver to get together. And the same goes as in hockey. They really like to play each other.
Yeah, definitely a rivalry matchup there. That's going to be a good one too. Vancouver just lost 3-1 at home to the Galaxy, but Vancouver is still one of the best teams in the Western Conference right now. Seattle was supposed to be, one of the favorites to win the Western Conference, so
Hmm.
we'll see. That should be a matchup between two very good teams in the West. If Seattle can start putting some wins together.
That's always a good thing. The Sunday games are Charlotte and Minnesota. That game will be played in Charlotte, and LA taking on San Jose, and that game will be played over at at San Jose. So interesting. Actually, no, apologize. It's they're playing at LA. So the first game is a 6 o'clock game. So you get a doubleheader, night doubleheader here on these games. Charlotte plays the 6 o'clock game, and then follow that at 8:15. They staggered it for LA San Jose. So
Yeah, well, that's
that
good
one
at
was done
least.
right from that standpoint. So there you go. All right, everybody. Amadeus, why don't you tell us what's going on with your picks and how to find them right there in the show box below, and all the fun stuff that they might be able to find.
Yeah, make sure you check out my premium picks at bigal.com, pickadvisor.com, and theinsidersroom.com. The links are in the description below. You can get my Europa League game of the month that kicks off at 3 o'clock, as well as a Brazilian soccer play I have up. That's my action on the pitch, and then all my baseball really has started already. So it's a light day. There's not a ton of sports. Obviously, no basketball. It's a meaningless day in the NHL, and even the baseball card was light. So make sure you go check out the action on the pitch for tonight.
Well, I was looking for either you know Korean baseball or was it Russian ping pong that back in the day that everybody went to on that one.
Oh yeah, the good old table tennis. Those games can get wild sometimes.
Yeah, that's funny. All right, just looking real quick um, to see anything else coming. Nope, I was just checking to see if there's any headline. There aren't even headlines of major import in that you know in what's going on these days. Um, and well, Dwight Freeney says that Tom Brady was one of the toughest NFL quarterbacks to sack in in his career. Well, that's nice to know. We all know that Tom gets rid of the ball probably faster than any quarterback in the, in NFL history. So maybe that's what helped. But anyway, all right. No other headlines. Anybody else? Any questions from the audience out there? Quickly, going once, going twice. All right, put your pencils down, everybody, and we will see you again very, very soon. Have a lovely, lovely Thursday. Let me try to get this straight. And tomorrow we'll talk about what's going to be on TV for the weekend. And boy, is it going to be jam packed. Take care, everybody. Be well.